Hello, authors, and welcome to this week's video. I'm Miranda Darrow, freelance fiction editor, and this month we're focusing on a niche genre that's writing inspired by legends. This is tips for writing about Sasquatch, Nessie, and other legendary creatures. These are my creature feature book recommendations. Nessie, Sasquatch, cryptids, oh my! Let's start with one of my favorites, Devolution, the first-hand account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre by Max Brooks. This is the same author who wrote World War Z about the zombie apocalypse, and he also writes IP fiction. This one had me turning the pages late into the night as I peeked out my window, wondering if Sasquatch was coming out of the woods by my house, waiting to come pay me a visit. I love the slow-build suspense, and it was written mostly as a found diary epistolary style that somebody had found these records after the fact. The one that really made me want to write about this whole topic is an old one, At the Water's Edge by Sara Gruen. This book is 10 years old, but I still remember reading it. It's the same author who wrote Water for Elephants, but this book, At the Water's Edge, didn't get quite as much attention. It's a World War II era book featuring people looking for the Loch Ness Monster. I love the culture clash between the working class people in Scotland and the spoiled, pampered Americans running roughshod over their territory. After embarrassing themselves at the social event of the year in high society Philadelphia on New Year's Eve in 1942, Maddie and Ellis Hyde are cut off financially from Ellis's father, a former Army colonel, who is embarrassed by his son's inability to serve in World War II due to his color blindness. To Maddie's horror, Ellis decides that the only way to regain his father's favor and money is to succeed in a venture his father attempted and publicly failed at. He will hunt the famous Loch Ness Monster, and when he finds Nessie, he will restore his father's name and return to his father's good graces and pocketbook. Joined by their also annoying friend Hank, a wealthy socialite, the three make their way to Scotland in the midst of the war. Each day, the two men go off to hunt the monster, while another monster, Hitler, is devastating Europe. And Maddie, now alone in a foreign country, must begin to figure out who she is and what she wants, because these two are just ugly Americans and idiots. The novel tells of Maddie's social awakening to the harsh realities of life, of war, to the beauties of nature and connection to the forces larger to herself, to female friendship, and finally, to love. Another book, set in Scotland, The Loch Ness Papers, a Scottish bookshop mystery, was number 4 in a series by Paige Shelton. Bookshop seller Delaney Nichols befriends a Loch Ness Monster enthusiast. When he stands accused of murder, she'll do what it takes to learn who the real killer is, and whether Nessie herself is really lurking in the Scottish waters. Delaney Nichols is delighted with her life in Edinburgh, working at the Cracked Spine, a shop that specializes in hard-to-find books and artifacts. With the job that she loves and her fast-approaching marriage to devastatingly handsome Scottish pub owner Tom Shannon, Delaney's life could be straight out of a fairy tale. Or at least it would be, if the pastor meant to perform the wedding hadn't recently passed away. Right outside the church, where Delaney is searching for another reverend, she stumbles into Norval Fraser, an elderly man who's obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster. He's always attracted to the interesting and unusual, and Delaney befriends Norval. But when his nephew is found dead, the police decide Norval's obsession has moved from monsters to murders. And with a wedding to plan and her family arriving soon from Kansas, and the arrival of the over-the-top Texan with a wildly valuable book, Delaney's plate is full to bursting, and she can't abandon her new friend. Determined to help out Norval, she sets out to learn the truth. Next up is A Death in Door County by Annelise Ryan. This one's set in Wisconsin. If you don't think Midwesterners are obsessed with Nessie and other sea creatures, you haven't been to Crosby, Minnesota, home to its own sea serpent, actually a lake monster. In this book, a Wisconsin bookstore owner and a cryptozoologist are asked to investigate a series of deaths that just might be proof of a fabled lake monster. Morgan Carter, owner of Odds and Ends bookstore in Door County, Wisconsin, has a hobby. When she's not tending to the store, she's hunting cryptids, creatures whose existence is rumored but never proven to be real. It's a hobby that cost her parents their lives, but one that she'll never give up on. So when a number of bodies turn up on the shores of Lake Michigan with injuries that look like bites from a giant unknown animal, Police Chief John Flanders turns to Morgan for help. A skeptic at heart, Morgan can't turn down the opportunity to find proof of an entity whose existence she can't definitively rule out. She and her beloved rescue dog, Newt, journey to the strait known as Death's Door to hunt for a homicidal monster in the lake. But if they're not careful, she just might be its next victim. Also set in Wisconsin, another cozy mystery, Loch Ness Murder by Michele Pariza Wacek. This community has a creature they call Loch, an homage to Nessie and also a fictional boxer, Rocky. This is a cute novella. You can read it in an afternoon. It's set in the same fictional Wisconsin town that has a paranormal twist for all of the cozy mysteries in the series. Hey, how about some comedy? There are 2 titles by Christopher Moore. Christopher Moore channels William Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe in The Serpent of Venice, a satirical Venetian Gothic that brings back Pocket of Dog Snogging, the eponymous hero of Fool, along with his sidekick Drool and pet monkey Jeff, in a very loose retelling of The Merchant of Venice, plus a creature living in the Venetian canals, just for bonus fun. Christopher Moore also brought a sea serpent into the Lust Lizard of Melancholy Cove. Moore is definitely an acquired taste, so if you like his body humor, you'll enjoy these creature features. For The Serpent of Venice, though, you should start with Fool, because The Serpent of Venice is the second in a trilogy. So start with Fool, and then follow it up with Shakespeare for Squirrels, so you can get the whole Pocket the Court Jester trilogy in order. Continuing with the comedic and absurd, there's Jane Austen's tribute, Sense, Sensibility, and Sea Monsters by Jane Austen and Ben H. Winters. Sense, Sensibility, and Sea Monsters expands the original text of the beloved Jane Austen novel with all new scenes of giant lobsters, rampaging octopi, 2-headed sea serpents, and other biological monstrosities. As our story opens, the Dashwood sisters are evicted from their home and sent to live in a mysterious island full of savage creatures and dark secrets. While sensible Eleanor falls in love with Edward Ferrars, her romantic sister Marian is courted both by handsome Willoughby and hideous man-monster Colonel Brandon. Can the Dashwood sisters triumph over meddlesome matriarchs and unscrupulous rogues and to find true love, or will they fall victim to tentacles that are forever snapping at their heels? I'm an Austenophile, and I read this when it was first released, shortly after Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, by a different author, and there was a bit of a classics and monster mashup trend in the 2010s. Publishing is wild. Finally, we're going to end with The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Stephen Graham Jones writes horror, and this is a good one. This is a distinct shift from comedy, as Only Good Indians combines Blackfeet lore, guilt, and horror in a contemporary setting. This story follows the lives of 4 American Indian men and their families who are haunted by a disturbingly deadly event that took place in their youth. Years later, they are still tortured by this, and this book explores the myth of the Elkhead woman, which I'd also seen references to the Elkhead woman in some of the episodes of Reservation Dogs, which also features a Native American cast. Oh, wait, we're not done, because of course we have romance too. There are plenty of romances that feature Bigfoot lovers, but I haven't read any of those, and so I'm going to make a plug for 2 romances that I enjoyed. First up, one set in Scotland, is called Under Lock and Key by Lana Ferguson. It's a paranormal romance, which one would expect to be the subgenre when the hero is actually a Loch Ness creature. I'm not sure I would characterize the charming Lachlan as a monster, though. Our heroine, Key, has traveled to Scotland to meet her granny after her dad's death. She'd never been and definitely hadn't expected to fall for a local legend. And finally, no creature has a love interest in this one. I do recommend a fun contemporary romance, Love and Other Conspiracies by Mallory Marlowe. Hayden Hargrove made a name for himself as a cryptid expert on his hit podcast and is intrigued by the plucky blue-haired producer, Hallie, who just left as producer of another podcast that she'd helped make successful. When the production team sees that Hayden's solo on-screen presence is bad enough to make a ghost Blanche, Hallie jumps on camera too, hitting him and his cryptids with a healthy dose of skepticism and enough chemistry to electrify their show to the top of the competition. Okay, there's my list of creature features, novels that include characters from local lore, not straight up fantasy, but a hint of realism that could make them possible. If you have a book to add to this list, please drop a comment. I'm always looking for more in my library. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. I post new content every week. This is Miranda Darrow wishing you happy writing.